So good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started because, as you all know, I'm very respectful of your time. And I know that we're all on a clock and we need to be moving forward and get back to our very busy lives. So first of all, let me just welcome you. And for those of you that I don't know, I'm Michelle DeVito. I'm with MWR. I'm the Family Programs Manager. And so a lot of the seminars that you all have attended in the past have been through my office. We all know the safety regulations that go on here. I would ask you just to silence your phones, especially you two, silence your phones. It is a little, you know, the last time we were in here, it was too hot. So, you know, it's one of those things where we're just grateful that we have fresh air, right? So just a couple of quick items to review, reference MWR. There are some other events that are coming up. How many of you all went to the Fitness Fest? Had a great time. I understand I didn't get to attend, but I understand it was a fantastic event and lots of people had fun. So in line with that, in July, on the 5th of July, we have our next 5K. Please go ahead and check that out. Lots of good prizes and good camaraderie and a little bit of fresh air and some exercise. The golf course over at the Eagle Eye, for those of you that don't know, they're running some summer camps this year, so please check that out and see what's going on. And then my shameless plug for myself, in July we'll be having Social Security come back again, and they'll be talking to us about Social Security and you, when to take it, how it works, how it interfaces with Medicare and Medicaid, all those different health insurances. So in addition, after we have that seminar by Social Security, we're going to be having some individual appointments. So we'll set a schedule up online and let people make appointments, and you'll be able to meet with a Social Security representative individually about whatever the issues are that you might be looking at, whether it's for yourself or whether it's for a family member. So that takes care of the MWR announcements. Without further ado, I'd like to just talk a minute about senior citizen scams and about elder abuse. This is a topic that is really coming to the fore right now. We have better reporting practices and people that are more trusted to safeguard our elders. And so it's a topic we need to educate ourselves on, because if you have something that somebody else wants, then you can always be a target. And so we need to look at that population. Now, I will tell you that I just went to a training, and one of the things that I found out, nobody needs to reveal their age in here, I'll do it for all of us, that now that I am 60, I am protected as a special population. So when we start looking at those protections that apply to our families and to ourselves, it's not something that's at 65 or 67 that corresponds with some of those other entitlements we have. It now starts at the age of 60. So there's some additional protections that are in place. I'm going to let Mr. Lippy talk about some of those different things, but there are some fantastic legislative, I would say, milestones that we've just recently had happen here in Ohio. And he's going to talk to you about how that helps us as we protect our families, but also as we protect ourselves as we age into some of that age group, okay? So without further ado, Mr. Ryan Lippy is here. He is an educator with, let me make sure I get the title correct. He's a consumer educator in the Consumer Protection Section, the Office of the Ohio Attorney General, which is Mr. Dave Yost, okay? So that's who we're listening today. So this is truly a subject matter expert and someone that has his pulse on everything that's going on with this very, 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 I think, important topic. Okay, Ryan?
Great.
And I think you're all ready.
I think I'm all mic'd up. Can everybody hear me that's here live? Okay, great. Again, my name's Ryan Lippy. I'm with the Consumer Protection Section of the Ohio Attorney General's Office. And the Consumer Protection Section has roughly 80 folks in it. And we go statewide. Most of us are based in Columbus, but we do a lot of traveling. Myself and my two counterparts in the education unit do a lot of traveling. We don't have regions, so I could be in Ashtabula one day and Cincinnati the next day. So we do log a lot of miles every year trying to educate people, because a lot of these scams are very difficult to catch perpetrators. A lot of them are overseas, and we're not every day going to faraway countries to apprehend folks. We really rely on our education staff quite a bit to let older adults and those that deal with older adults or that are caretakers to really educate and empower folks to make the right decisions when they pick up that phone, when they open the door, when they get the mail every day, and are vulnerable to some of the scams I'm going to talk about. So we have a large agency. There's 33 sections of the Ohio Attorney General's office. We have about 1,600 total employees. As we mentioned, Dave Yost is the Attorney General. He was just elected last November, so we're fairly fresh in terms of our newest administration. We've got part of our office dedicated towards some law enforcement efforts. We have the Ohio Peace Officer Training Academy, which is based in London, Ohio. And just like a lot of our offices, they do have a presence in Cleveland as well for Northeast Ohio. So they do advanced law enforcement training. They enforce, they do all kinds of work with certifying the basic training instructors and basic training facilities for Ohio's law enforcement. We have BCI, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation and Identification. They're like sort of the CSI for Ohio. They just don't solve all the crimes in 1 hour like on that show. But they do handwriting, fingerprint, DNA analysis. They have crime scene vehicles. I was a little nervous because I was at an event 2 days ago, and the BCI vehicle was already there in front of me, and I'm thinking, I hope this isn't a crime scene. Fortunately, it was not a crime scene, but they do a lot of evidence gathering at the site of violent offenses, things like that. Lots of other sections of the office. I want to touch on just a couple before I start into talking about our scams that we're here to learn about. We have the healthcare fraud section. If anybody watching or here today knows of a problem with a nursing home or an assisted living center in the state of Ohio, if there's a problem, the healthcare fraud section wants to know about it. They do lots of investigations. And one of their specialties, one of their tasks that they're nationally recognized for just about every year is Medicaid fraud, the amount of money they're able to return back to taxpayers in Ohio that shouldn't be in the system to begin with. Just like bank robbers go to banks because that's where the money is, there are a lot of consumer-oriented scammers that try to go to the Medicaid, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, to try to pass off services as being of value and try to illicitly go through and get Medicaid dollars that they should not be allowed to get. We also have the charitable law section. I think that one's important to note because they could come here and talk about being a wise donor. They take complaints about scam charities or charities that may be under investigation for potentially being scams. So that's actually a separate part of our office. I don't work for charitable law, but they are very important, and you can see where there's sort of a gray area between consumer protection and charitable law because there are scam charities out there. So we want to educate people about those while we're on the road as well. We have the civil rights section. They can talk about housing discrimination, employment discrimination, things like that. Just a taste for what we do every day. We have workers' compensation. We have all kinds of criminal justice type units and sections as well. But I'm here on behalf of consumer protection, and we try to ensure that it's a safe marketplace for consumers. Whether you are buying a timeshare, buying a used car, asking for home improvement work to be done on your home or your condo, you are all entitled to consumer protection. And we have in Ohio what's called the Consumer Sales Practices Act. And in Ohio, that is sort of the holy grail for what is considered to be legal or illegal in the world of buying and selling merchandise, products, and services. So if something is unconscionable, most likely that similar issue has been dealt with before in Ohio. And there's notice given to all merchants that that practice is unlawful. And if we see it happen again, obviously we can take that merchant to task for violating consumer law. In terms of buying a vehicle, buying a used vehicle is actually our #1 complaint issue, so I wanted to bring that to your attention. We took 22,000 complaints in 2018, and not all used car complaints necessarily are scams, but I do see a disproportionate number of people buying cars sight unseen, where they'll be convinced by someone on Craigslist or another message board that the car's for sale, it's really a great price. Please put a deposit down and I'll remove it so no one else will be able to buy the car out from under you. When there's no car for sale, they simply stole the photo from a reputable used car location, put it on as theirs, and then they just sit there and take deposits all day. Same kind of thing happens with apartment rentals as well. I see a lot of apartments that are for rent when they're really for sale. A lot of single-family homes, scammers will steal photos and other information from the realtor's website, put it up on their own website, or put it up on some of those online bulletin boards as being for rent when it's really not for rent. And they'll make up a story about how they are out of state, they can't deliver the keys right away, but just wire that deposit to me. Or just buy a MoneyGram and send me the money for the deposit, and I'll make sure you get the apartment. Seeing store advertisements, we get a lot of folks that call in about possible illegal practices in advertising. This could be advertising for a car, it could be advertising for a toaster oven. No matter what, we want to make sure that if it's, for instance, a buy one, get one free sale, that you're not paying for both items somehow. They didn't just magically inflate the price of the first item to make it look like you're getting something for nothing. At least in Ohio, free is supposed to mean free. If they're doing a liquidation sale or a going out of business sale, we want to make sure that they're really going out of business. They can't use that as an excuse to mark down their prices, then stay in business for years upon years, always having a liquidation sale. Home improvement work is a really important category. The home improvement work that we deal with often involves someone who doesn't complete the work. They might have insisted on a large down payment. They might have some services to offer. The question is, will they actually do the work, and will they complete the job and not leave the property worse than when they came in? We do see a lot of folks that go door to door, and we call them storm chasers. That's where they go into a neighborhood that's been subjected to flooding or wind damage or tornado activity, and they'll go door to door promising home repairs and simply either make the repairs in a shoddy manner, do half the job, or worst case scenario, they just leave and don't come back to do any of the work. But a lot of those scammers like large down payments because they don't plan on ever completing the work. So we always recommend, first of all, that any consumer look to the Better Business Bureau, look to the Ohio Attorney General's office, do some searches on the web for the name of the company along with words like complaint or scam, especially if you're trying to be talked into a door-to-door offer. Because again, I see a lot of home repair folks that are less than reputable have to resort to door-to-door. So just sort of make that red flag as soon as you open the door that, hey, this person may not be providing legitimate services, or they may be able to, but they may fail to do the job. So I don't know about you, but the Better Business Bureau does grade cards on how responsive businesses are to the public. So I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to let someone who gets an F from the Better Business Bureau to do my roof. I wouldn't want somebody that gets a D- to come in and restore my chimney, for example. Those types of things are easily found through the Better Business Bureau website, and all our complaints at the Ohio Attorney General's office are open. So if you want to know whether somebody's had a lot of open, unaddressed complaints against their business, you can come to us and make a public records request, and we'll share with you other people's stories and what they've gone through with some of these companies. As I mentioned, 22,000 complaints in 2018. This is an example of some of the categories that those fell under. Again, used car sales is #1. We deal with everything: cable, wireless, collection calls, renting and landlords. We work a lot of those complaints, even if they're not necessarily in our jurisdiction. As a courtesy to consumers, we will try to use what we call an informal dispute resolution process to try to mediate the situation, give the customer back the refund if the business is able to see their side of the story. So we don't take sides. We don't go to court for anyone. We don't provide legal advice to the public. When we provide legal advice, it's always to statewide office holders, statewide agencies, folks like that. So we can't take one case and go to court with it and try to get your money back. But what we do is we use that informal dispute resolution process. If you're scammed, or if you're dealing with a less than reputable business, or if you think you deserve a refund, even if everybody else is happy with the work that company does, if you feel like you have been mistreated or subjected to an unfair business practice, or you deserve a refund, we want to hear from you. A toll-free number, website, we have all the tools out there so that you can contact us in the event that you have a complaint against a business. And as you see on this chart, number 7 is identity theft. And if I have a few minutes at the end, I'm going to talk specifically about identity theft because it's that important in people's lives these days. Identity theft, as you see, is one of our most common complaints. And we have an identity theft unit here in Ohio where we can piece together your identity if you've been a victim of identity theft. We've had that since 2012, and I think that service is probably underutilized. People do try to do it themselves. It can be very burdensome. Sometimes it can be costly to go through and try to repair your identity. So we offer that free service to consumers here in the state of Ohio. We do have an economic crimes unit. They help local authorities identify, investigate, and prosecute consumer fraud of a criminal nature. I won't bore you with the history of the Attorney General's office, but I'll say that when they came out with these consumer laws decades ago, they imagined civil remedies. These days, people need to be put in handcuffs, at least some of them, need to serve jail time for how they are scamming the public. And so these are some examples of why we have the Economic Crimes Unit. On the left is Bruce McFarland, and on the right is Herschel Mumaw. And together, along with some of those co-conspirators on the right-hand side of the screen, they went ahead and scammed 25 older adults out of $137,000 in total. And they were active in Circleville, Ohio, but they covered the contiguous counties as well. So all through central Ohio, they were trying to prey on older homeowners, trying to get them to write a check, and a big check, in order to be able to get home repair done that they ended up never doing. They didn't do any work. But not only did they accept first checks from consumers, they went around and claimed that the first check had been misplaced or damaged, and they went ahead and accepted second checks from these homeowners. And then, like the scammers they were, they cashed all the checks. So again, that's something that our Economic Crimes Unit can handle if we can wrap our fingers around these, the way these scams operate. And a lot of times it does take the help of local law enforcement, county prosecutors, to get them to give us permission to try cases or jointly prosecute the folks that fall into this criminal realm of consumer fraud. So why do you think seniors are targeted? Does anybody in the audience here live know why seniors would be a targeted audience for scammers? What was that? They have a lot of money and they forget. Sort of two parts there. They're certainly more trusting and polite. So they come from a generation where you could shake somebody's hand and knew you were getting a deal. You could look in somebody's eyes and know whether they were telling the truth or not. Not so much with these younger generations. So seniors tend to be more trusting and polite. They're open to investments. They're open to potentially ways to make money. They want to hear if you have something to offer, yet they don't understand necessarily right away that 100% of what that person may be telling you is a lie. They have more assets. They might be getting investment income, Social Security. They might be widowed and have insurance money. Scammers look for where the money is, and that's unfortunately the older populations that make them vulnerable. They're less likely to report fraud. There's some old statistics out there, but the newest statistics show that while people in their 20s are more susceptible, more prone to actually accepting the scams, the higher you get in age, the more money those scams cost you. The seniors are the ones that are departing with the most money based on scammers' work. So and also we deal with seniors that are embarrassed, they're afraid, they've been talked into a scam thinking they're going to go to jail if they don't comply with what the scammer wants them to do. And a lot of times they're embarrassed, and it takes them a while to catch on that it's actually a scam. And they're more independent and isolated. You know, it's great if you live in a senior home or you go to a senior center on a daily basis, because you have some camaraderie with your cohorts in that population category. You can show each other mail, you can play voicemails that you get on your phone for each other and sort of put more than one brain together to try to figure out whether some of these calls are scams. I can tell you right now, some of those calls are scams. But if you're independent and isolated, if you've had family move out of the state of Ohio, you might not feel like you have those trusted resources anymore. You might have relied on a spouse. You might have relied on friends and family right within your own neighborhood. As they move out, as they venture out beyond our borders, again, seniors are left to fend for themselves and feel like they have to make split-second decisions, especially if it's a matter of trying to stay out of jail. And the scammers will push a lot of buttons telling you that you're going to be in trouble if you don't comply and give them personal information and money. We do have several tactics I wanted to go through in terms of what we see with some of the common scams. First of all, you want to beware of any requests for wire transfers like Western Union or MoneyGram, prepaid money cards, gift cards from anybody wanting to do business with those types of behaviors. Certainly you can send Western Union to someone you already know and love, like a friend or family member. But if someone is trying to do business with you through some type of wire transfer service or through an iTunes gift card or through a Google Play gift card, watch out. Unless it's a legitimate merchant on a legitimate website, if they want currency in that type of format, it's probably because they want to remain anonymous and they want to scam you. And even if they're on a site, just be careful giving someone any of these forms of payment, because those are most likely used in scams. If they ask for an Amazon gift card and they aren't Amazon, it's a scam. If they ask for a Google Play card or an iTunes card and they're not on Google Play and they don't deal with iTunes as a business, that's a scam. Also, if there's a request for personal information, I've tried to teach seniors to be as frugal with their personal information as they are with their money. Be conservative. Don't give out more information than you think someone really needs to complete a transaction. And if you're prone to signing up for sweepstakes and contests and things like that, read those privacy policies. Figure out what somebody is going to do and not do with your personal information. And if it feels like a threat, if it feels like they're asking for more information than you feel comfortable with, just say no. And that goes true for the phone calls, as well as, we just had the big Columbus Arts Festival. Part of that was, hey, do you want to sign up for a sweepstakes? Hey, do you want a trip to Europe? Do you want all kinds of goodies? Again, see if they have a privacy policy. Think twice before you give them personal identifying information. Pressure to act immediately. One case comes to mind where they gave a lady in Delaware County 45 minutes to go buy $2,100 in prepaid money cards, saying that she owed a payday loan and she was going to go to jail if they did not comply. So she went to the grocery store or the drugstore to buy $2,100 in prepaid money cards. Fortunately, they turned her down. They either knew it was a scam or they had some limits placed on how much you could buy at one time. But whoever that clerk was behind the counter at that drugstore saved that lady $2,100 because she had the scammers ready to get the digits off the back of that card and drain all the money she was about to give them. Request to keep a conversation a secret. I think that's a good sign that you ought to tell somebody. So play the opposite role and say, hey, be skeptical, talk to someone if they tell you to keep the conversation a secret. Because I can't think of any good reason why someone who supposedly has a sweepstakes award for you, or supposedly you owe taxes, whatever story they're giving you, I can't think of a good reason why they would want you to keep the conversation a secret. They'll give you a reason, but that's when you ought to tell somebody. That's one of our red flags, is request to keep the conversation a secret. Guarantee to make money, especially with those investment scams. If somebody's claiming they're going to earn you 10% or 20% within 90 days, or you're going to double your money in a year's time, figure out what the risks are, because there's got to be some risk to it, because a worthwhile savings account at this point gets less than 1% or 2% as a return. Anything beyond that either has risk or it's a scam. It's as simple as that. Request for a large down payment, especially true with the home improvement sector. Try to put it in thirds if it's a big job. Make 1/3 as a down payment, 1/3 after they've done some work to your satisfaction, and save as much as possible, at least 1/3 of that total invoice amount for the very end, so you know you're not dealing with someone who's less than reputable that's going to go out and skip out on part of the job. If there's no contract or nothing written into the contract, that's when you've got to ask questions. Don't do anything without a written contract, and if there are a bunch of blanks, don't buy their word that they're going to put those guarantees in when they get back to the office. You want to get a full contract with no fill in the blanks that haven't been filled in. That's what you want to sign off on, and make sure that all the promises are in writing. We say in Ohio that there's no such thing as a guarantee unless it's written down. If a car dealer tells you that they're going to give you a free car wash every day of your life, make sure it's in the sales contract. If the roofing shingle is supposed to be a certain color, make sure that's in the contract. Sending money out of the country, you would think that people would have a rule of thumb never to send money out of the country. Just remember, these scammers are professionals. They do this for a living. They've got 24 hours a day to practice their stories. So they will give you a reason that might sound rational for sending money out of the country. Don't buy it, but just be forewarned, sending money out of the country is certainly a red flag. How many of you have heard of the grandparent scam? So you know that one where they'll call up and they'll say, I'm your grandson, I'm your granddaughter. They may even know the name. Through social media, they may have found out. Through obituaries, they may have found out. But they claim to be in trouble, or they claim there's some emergency and they need just a few $100s or a few $1,000s right away. Oh, and by the way, please don't tell mom and dad because I'm really embarrassed about the situation. I just need this one-time payment from you. A lot of scammers are convincing, believe it or not. For as many hang-ups as they probably get, which I would think that we would be helpful to getting the hang-ups because we're out there telling people about the grandparent scam, there are people that still get swindled with the grandparent scam. So if you get a call and it claims to be your grandchild, ask a question that only your grandchild would know. Confirm with family, especially when they say don't tell mom and dad. That's when you want to pick up the phone and call your son or daughter and confirm that that child is safe, that child is not in any emergency situation. Most likely, he or she is going to be at school, at work, at home, where they're supposed to be. And finally, don't send money. That's exactly what the scammer wants. And we're going to watch a video now of a couple folks in the Dayton area that got scammed of $1,500. Go ahead and play this video for us.
Got a scam alert tonight for Grandma and Grandpa. Thieves targeting some of our most vulnerable folks. New at 11, Lisa Smith takes you live to Beaver Creek with the story of one older couple who lost $1,500. Lisa?
Well, Jack, imagine getting a frantic phone call from your grandchild saying, help, I'm in trouble, I need money. Well, what?
Hello?
Dolores Tennant had no idea answering her phone one day last week was the beginning of a con.
He said, hi, Grandma. He said, this is your grandson. And I said, yeah? He said, yeah, you probably can't understand me too well. He said, I got a broken nose and some stitches. And I told him, I said, Is this Adam? Stupid mistake. And he said, yeah, Grandma, that's who it is.
And from there, the story got expensive. A man who said he was an attorney got on the phone and said she needed to send $1,500 in iTunes cards to pay the person her grandson hit in the accident. So she went to Kroger, bought the cards, and gave the caller the PIN numbers. But the red flags were everywhere. Send the payment in iTunes cards. Mail the cards overnight to an address in New York.
Things just weren't clicking. The gears weren't matching.
Then a call from her actual grandson who lives out of state.
He said, I was not in a car accident. He said, everything's fine. He said, I'm fine.
We've been invaded.
And I told him, I said, we just lost $1,500.
They contacted police and the Ohio Attorney General's office. It turns out they aren't the only ones. At least 40 complaints have been filed this year alone, several right here in the Miami Valley.
We worked hard for our money, and they just abused it and took it away from us.
Now, you may be wondering why iTunes cards. Well, it turns out that using those numbers on the back, that money can quickly be transferred to other accounts online. Now, the couple did write down those numbers, but authorities aren't sure if they'll see their money again. Live in Beaver Creek, Lisa Smith, Fox 45 News on ABC.
Okay, so we see a lot of the grandparent scam. We also see a lot of other versions of what I will term the imposter scam. If you've gotten a call from the phony IRS, if you've gotten a call from the phony Social Security Administration, the phony U.S. Treasury. Now, most people in this audience are probably very sensitive to getting calls from the government or from the military. If they're calling saying they're from a government office, a lot of you would say, really? I find that hard to believe. Though a lot of people do get duped. They use a caller ID spoofing technology to spoof the caller ID. They may use a 202 area code to make it seem like they're really calling from Washington. They might use a local area code, especially with your 3-digit exchange, and claim that they're calling from a local area just to get you to pick up the phone. So with the imposter scam, a lot of times they'll impersonate the IRS and say they're after personal information or that you owe back taxes and you're going to go to jail or you're going to face consequences if you don't comply right away with what they're trying to do to you. So with the imposter scam, we know now not to trust your caller ID. Could be they can put whatever phone number they want to on your caller ID. Don't provide personal information. Again, that information has value. Even the last 4 digits of your social, even your birth date, don't give them more than what's really required. And if they say they're from an agency, call back using a legitimate number. The number for Medicare is 1-800-MEDICARE. All of you probably know how to find the official website, the official phone number for just about every government agency out there. So if they say they're from the FBI, if they say they're from the VA, hang up and then call back that legitimate number and verify the pretense of what they're calling about and figure out whether it's truly them or not. Usually if it's a government agency and they're calling out of the blue for no reason, it's probably a scam. I know that that's what the IRS has been trying to give out to people, the fact that they are going to always send a letter first in the postal mail rather than just cold calling you with a brand new issue. Let's go ahead and watch this video about the imposter scam.
Explain that to me again, please.
All right, here's the deal. I'm going to pretend I'm with the IRS. I'm going to say you owe back taxes and threaten you with jail time. That'll scare you into giving me a whole bunch of your money. I also need your Social Security number, too, because then I can really take you to the cleaners.
Unfortunately, it's never this obvious. That's why we're here, dedicated to protecting Ohio families against frauds and scams. Get the facts you need today at ohioprotects.org.
We see a lot of prize and sweepstakes scams as well. We get a lot of people that claim to be Publishers Clearinghouse winners when they may not even enter, let alone the fact that it's hard to win when you do enter. We have a lot of people talked into claiming that they've won a foreign lottery or the Publishers Clearinghouse. So in terms of prize and sweepstakes scams for you, for loved ones in your family and friends that are older, spread the word to never pay advanced fees or taxes to receive a prize. Free is supposed to mean free. And you guys in this audience know where to pay taxes. If they're telling you to send it to somebody else, it's probably a scam. You pay taxes to the Treasury, you pay taxes to the Ohio Department of Taxation or folks like that, not someone in New York, not someone in the private sector. And if you didn't enter the contest, you probably didn't win. I also see a lot of grant scams out there. They always claim that you can get a government grant of $8,000 or $9,000. Maybe that's the magic number. Maybe that's the number that they've decided will get the least amount of hang-ups and the most people thinking it's true. But there's no government grant for you paying your taxes on time or for being a good citizen. Again, just like with anything else, if it's a government grant, you have to apply for it. You have to have a reason. Nobody's just going to call you and award you money. Believe it or not, that scam still works quite a bit. Fake check scams, if you're on websites like Craigslist, it's selling something. If you're selling a lawnmower for $300 and you get a $1,200 check in the mail, that is a fake check scam. That's where they want you to deposit the check like it's real. The teller will probably accept it because it looks like a normal check. It has a routing number, an account number, but it's all either bogus or stolen. And they will tell you to wire money to someone else for shipping the item. They'll say, that's why I gave you more than what you wanted. That's why you need to take that check, deposit it, and then wire your real money to a third party. And that third party is obviously part of the scam as well, whether they know it or not. A lot of times work from home scams work off of fake checks. Mystery shopping scams work off of fake checks. So always call the bank issuing the check to verify the funds. And whatever you do, never send off a portion of the funds for any reason. And a lot of times you can tell it's a fake check if you know a little bit about how checks look. But again, a lot of times they're going to be passing muster even to the teller because they want you to deposit the check. They want you to get temporary access to the money because then you'll think the check is actually cleared, when in fact it can take up to 10 days, a couple weeks for a check to totally clear the bank. And so eventually it'll come back as counterfeit and all that money will be sucked back out of your account. And if you've wired money, generally once you wire money, it's gone. Computer repair scam, anybody get a call from Microsoft or Windows or tech support? They want remote access to your computer, access from far away, which is certainly possible, but I would never allow a stranger remote access because they will use that opportunity to put viruses on your computer. They might even give you ransomware where they lock your computer up unless or until they pay you money. So with the computer repair scam, never allow remote access to a stranger. And remember, callers can't tell if your computer has a virus. Let's go ahead and run this video. Thanks.
Hello? Hello. This is Bobby with tech support. Yeah, I'm just gonna need you to give me complete access to your computer so I can pretend to remove a virus while actually taking all your personal and financial information. Oh, and I'm gonna lock a computer, so you have to pay me to access it. Sound good?
Unfortunately, it's never this obvious. That's why we're here, dedicated to protecting Ohio families against frauds and scams. Get the facts you need today at ohioprotects.org.
So again, you guys do cybersecurity training at this installation. Be as vigilant at home with your home network as you are with the networks here. Ask questions, be skeptical. We see a lot of romance and sweetheart scams. These are some of the saddest scams because they will prey on a senior. They'll butter them up for a few weeks or a few months, gain their trust, and then somehow insert the need for money into the situation. They're almost always telling folks that they're overseas. That's probably where the truth stops. They'll tell you that they're an oil contractor offshore somewhere. They'll tell you they're in the military stationed overseas. They'll tell you they're a businessman that's doing contract work in another country. Then a few weeks later, a few months later, oops, there's a medical emergency. I need money. Or there is a problem. I need to come visit my family. Or I need to come to the United States to meet you, my latest love interest. Can you please help me pay for that ticket? Because I'll give you your money back, but I can't cash checks in my foreign country. So always research someone you meet online. Talk to friends and family about any online relationships. And suffice it to say, don't send money to someone you've only met online, no matter how good their story is. Friends and family scams, as you see from this headline on the screen, it says friends in quotes, clean out man's life savings. That's the story of Peter Savaldi. He was a 94-year-old brewmaster, and he was the first brewmaster at Anheuser-Busch in the Columbus facility. And he had had a one-bedroom apartment his whole life. He had worn the same pair of hush puppy shoes for years and years and years. It says 40 years in the article. I don't know about 40 years for a pair of shoes, but he was frugal, let's put it that way. And so he was susceptible to these two lovely younger ladies that endeared themselves to him. They went out for drinks, and eventually they talked Peter Savaldi into giving them power of attorney, power over those financial accounts like his banking. So what did they do with Peter Savaldi's money? They bought and sold 5 cars during their so-called friendship. They bought a $166,000 condo in Dublin. One of the ladies paid off her own IRS debt. Both of them got cosmetic surgery, and they had artwork commissioned as well. So over $800,000 was lost. And they got tens of thousands of dollars back after losing hundreds of thousands of dollars to these perpetrators. So look for the use of credit cards without permission. Look for pressure to sign over deeds or powers of attorney or titles, forged signatures. These are all the types of things that could happen when you're being scammed by a caregiver or by someone you already know, some existing relationship that you have. Not all scams are from strangers. In fact, a lot of elder abuse is done by people the older adult already knows. So look for bills that go unpaid, because a lot of seniors pay your bills on time. If someone you know is having trouble paying their bills, maybe that money's going to a scammer. It doesn't hurt to ask what's going on in their life that causes them to have those past due notices. Because one thing is true about seniors, they usually pay their bills either on time or before it's due. New best friends or love interests, unusual banking. If they go to the bank once every other week and suddenly they're going to the bank every day, or you see Post-it notes with them about wiring money to some stranger, those are the kinds of questions you need to ask. What is happening here? Why are you going to the bank so often? And also belongings missing can be a key as well. Sometimes seniors write it off to being forgetful, but there are scammers that are caregivers that'll steal right from out from under a senior's nose. And as we mentioned earlier on in the presentation, there are a lot of mandatory reporters now of financial abuse, including financial institutions and bankers and folks like that. So that's how they caught the Peter Savaldi case, was caught by the security department at the bank. Even though these two lovely ladies had power of attorney, they saw this money transferring over and over again and looked at the case further and found out that these were actually criminals. I'm going to spend the rest of the time, we've got about 10 minutes left. You guys can ask questions if you want. I'm going to talk about identity theft because it is a special, particular part of this presentation that I really want you to hear. Identity theft is when a person obtains and uses your personal information without your permission to commit fraud. Most of you know about data breaches, like the Target data breach, the Equifax data breach. Do I have to tell you about the Office of Personnel Management data breach? For those of you that lived through that, it was quite burdensome in terms of wondering whether you have given up your social security number, other reference numbers, other personal identifying information because of a data breach. But until the information is actually used, it's not yet identity theft. So some warning signs of identity theft. Certainly if you're denied credit when you know you have good credit, that can be a sign. Unauthorized charges, even small charges on your account that you don't recognize, question those. Figure out whether it might be something broader in terms of identity theft. If debt collectors contact you, there are scam debt collectors, but if a debt collector says they're legitimate, if they give you validation in writing of the debt, if they seem to be doing what they're supposed to be doing as a debt collector, it may be that somebody else ran up the tab using your social security number. So the debt collector might be honestly trying to collect a debt, not realizing that you were a victim of identity theft. If you receive unfamiliar bills or you no longer receive mail, the identity thieves will go through the dumpster. They'll go through unlocked mailboxes to find information they need about you. And certainly errors on your credit report, that's a key thing as well. If you haven't already done so, every year you should have a practice of checking all 3 credit reports. You have Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion are the 3 credit reporting bureaus, the major ones. That's what Congress intended you to get free every year when they passed this legislation about 15 or 20 years ago saying we all get free credit reports. It's once a year, all 3 credit reporting agencies. You can space them out. You can go to 1 credit reporting agency every 4 months if you want to get more of a year-round impression of whether you might be a victim of identity theft. Also, obviously, a good way to gauge whether you have a credit score that's low or high. Congress did not mandate that you get credit scores for free, just the credit report. You can reduce your risk of identity theft, shredding documents. You guys are secure in this facility, be secure at home. Shred documents with at least a cross-cut shredder, if not a confetti shredder. Watch for scams. We see a lot of phishing scams. Phishing, I don't mean phishing in Lake Erie, but phishing with a PH. Phishing for personal information, phony bank notices that go out claiming that your credit card's been compromised and that you need to click on a special link and give them your password, your PIN, your mother's maiden name, and your social security number. I wouldn't think a rational bank would do that these days, but scammers will. They'll copy your bank logo. They'll copy everything that should be on a bank email to make it seem like it's coming from your actual bank. So you want to be double sure and watch for any of those scams. Create a mail schedule. If you have to put something that's important in the mail with personal identifying information, think about going to the post office instead of putting it out in front of your home with the flag up. Also, know when the mail comes. Take care of your mail. Take it out of your mailbox as soon as possible. And when you're on vacation, when there's long weekends, don't let mail sit in that mailbox. That can be an invitation to an identity thief. Update computer software, especially your antivirus, your operating system, your internet browser. There might be security patches that you need to patch your system up that weren't foreseen when they first loaded that program onto your computer or when you first loaded it on there. So always update on a regular basis. And if your computer asks you whether you should automatically update, that's always a good idea to do. Have it automatically update those files for you so you don't have to regularly check manually. Don't volunteer information, monitor your financial statements, and don't carry extra personal information like your social security card. I used to use the Medicare ID card, but now that they've put a randomly generated ID number on Medicare cards, it's less of a risk because it doesn't have your social security number on it, but it's still a risk because somebody could go out and commit medical identity theft, getting a prescription, getting an operation, getting a medical device, using your Medicare number. I'm still fearful of some identity theft, even with those new Medicare cards, because the ID number's on it. Most of you are familiar with cyberspace. I won't spend a lot of time on this slide, but I will say that you need to be aware of unknown attachments, downloads, links you're not sure about. I see a lot of kids trying to download music and videos for free. They may be, if they're going to a disreputable site or a site that's outside of the iTunes environment or the Google Play Store or the Amazon Kindle store, they may be downloading malicious software along with that music and along with that video. So I know that it's important to check your email, but it's also important to delete your email if it has attachments that you don't recognize, if it's a link from a friend without any context or without any message. Confirm with your friend before you open up any of that, because it could be another way of getting malicious software onto your device. And certainly do not provide personal information over free public Wi-Fi. even at trusted locations like your favorite coffee shop, your favorite airport, your favorite train station. Don't provide personal information over free public Wi-Fi. Save that for home, where hopefully it's behind a firewall and with encryption and things like that to protect your security. There was an article back in 2013 in Reader's Digest. I'm sure everybody reads Reader's Digest, right? If you don't read Reader's Digest, it's a great article, Anonymous Confessions of a Con Artist, where they go through the victim mentality versus the skeptic mentality. And he didn't want to deal with skeptics at all. He wanted to deal with victims because they would not ask a lot of questions. They would answer a lot of questions like, what is your social security number? I need to give you a new Medicare ID. I swear I'm really calling for Medicare. I just need to verify your ID number. So a lot of skeptics would hang up the phone or ask questions. The victims are the ones that are readily willing to say yes. They don't look for why the offer is a scam. They look for why the offer will make them money. Some tips for avoiding scams. This is my final real substance-heavy slide. So I'm going to give you some always tips and some never tips to wrap up. And I wanted to give you a little bit of housekeeping. If you missed it, I have a consumer advocate sign-up sheet that is in the back. So if you want to sign up with your email address, we can get you on our consumer advocate mailing list to keep you updated every other month with information and articles that we write. You'll always want to be skeptical. That's one of my always tips. Always research businesses and charities. Always beware of strangers who seek personal connections. Keep your information private, and know that if it's too good to be true, it probably is. My never tips: never send money via suspicious methods like Western Union for a stranger. Never give personal information. Never carry unnecessary personal information. Never pay to win a prize. Never allow a stranger remote access to your computer. And never pay the full amount up front. Except, I guess, at the grocery store you have to. But never pay the full amount up front for some big home improvement job. We have a great website here in Ohio. It's ohioprotects.org. We also have our phone number, 1-800-282-0515 for those of you that are in Ohio. This is a great tool. They're open till 7 p.m. That is your way to report scams. It's your way to get identity theft protection, victim assistance. It's your way to, if there's a problem with a business that we can help out with through our informal dispute resolution program, we want to hear about it. We can also educate based on your complaints too. So even if you know we're not going to catch the scammer, or you think they might be overseas, report so that we have an idea of what scams are going on across our state. There's just some other consumer resources. I will tell you most of these are listed in the packet of information that you got. And if you did not, if you're here in the auditorium and you did not get a packet, there are still some in the back. Thank you so much for your time. I can take questions. You can share stories with me. I just want to be cognizant of the time clock back there.
Okay, I'm going to walk around with the microphone. One of the things I do want to let you all know is that we are recording this session and that it'll be available in about a week. I'll send the link out to everyone that's here. But it's our recorded sessions for MWR seminars are always available on the MWR webpage. It's open access. It doesn't have to be on a military computer. They're loaded through YouTube. So if you want to rewatch this, if you have someone that you want to share it with, that will be available in just about a week, okay? So our first question is over here.
Thank you. So this is more about the consumer part from the beginning, not a scam. Okay, so my mom is 89, well, will be 89 years old this year, and we continually battle. I mean, this has been an ongoing battle for years, like 3 or 4 or 5 years, where with Ohio, the AEP people and the Columbia Gas people, where I don't know why they just won't lock it down, where she can't receive phone calls. We've even had like her phone, we have her phone shut down for if it's coming from a telemarketer or whatever, it basically drops it. Other calls, like with AEP and Columbia Gas, we've had our phone number, our home phone number put on her bill so that it has to come to me. They've somehow circumvented that. But it's like every other month, she is being switched because she believes, that she's going to get cheaper gas or whatever. And then she ends up paying $122 if she breaks the contract. And she's breaking the contract like every third or fourth month.
Yeah.
And so now she's got to pay because she didn't stay in it for a year or two. And this is like, I have talked to the Ohio Attorney General. I've talked to the
Have you talked to the PUCO?
I've talked to them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And I don't know why the Attorney General's office just can't make them stop
Yeah.
and make it where if I want to get a cheaper price on gas or electric, I'm the one that has to be proactive to call them. They can't call me.
Yeah, I mean, the way the laws are written for folks that have the ability to choose an electric or a natural gas supplier, because Ohio is a choice state, the way the rules are written is there's a do not call list, and I believe that is held by the local electric and natural gas utility. And every supplier should be abiding by that do not call list. But you do, as you mentioned, you have to proactively put yourself on that do not call list. Now, there's the broader do not call registry run by the Federal Trade Commission. And again, those sales calls should not be coming to you if you're on the broader do not call list. A lot of the calls we're getting today, the fact is a lot of them are scammers. And they're not going to abide by any laws. They're not going to care about the do not call list, which has worked to some degree with legitimate telemarketers. And there have been successful enforcement action against telemarketers that are trying to sell something to you, but they're not abiding by the do not call law. So please report violators. And it sounds like you're doing the right thing as best you can to contact our office, to contact the PUCO in this case, because it's electric and natural gas choice programs. But there are termination fees, and I definitely feel that pain because I know as a resident of Ohio that there is the ability to choose, but there's always fine print, there's always circumstances where you might be charged a fee if you don't hold that electric choice or natural gas choice for 6 months or a year or 2 years, depending on what the term of service is.
So I hear you saying phone calls, but in my neighborhood, people come and knock on doors.
Absolutely.
And in my father's neighborhood as well. So is there anything other than PUCO that helps out with that?
If it's PUCO is your best resource, as is the Ohio Consumers Council, if it's dealing with the electric and natural gas utilities.
It is.
If you're dealing with other types of suppliers, putting a no soliciting sign on your door, seeing if they have the proper permits depending on what jurisdiction you're in, things like that are important. But I mean, just not answering the door if you don't know who it is, or if your caller ID comes up and you don't recognize the number, let it go to voicemail. It's now more important than ever that we let those calls that we're not sure about slide right into voicemail. And if it's a scammer, they're probably not going to leave a message at all.
So just being clear, so the Attorney General has nothing to do or can do nothing about people knocking on your doors and trying to get you to switch.
If you think you have a good solution to that, I would contact your state representative or your state senator, see if there can be a law passed. Right now, there's a law that hasn't been passed yet, but it'll make caller ID spoofing illegal in many cases. So some laws can come right from this room if you contact your state representative, your state senator. I would start with those state legislators and see whether that's something that they can abide, that they can be a subject of legislation. But some communities, you have to register in order to solicit. So if they're not registered with the local municipality, they're actually committing an offense by going door to door trying to get your business. But I don't know if that's necessarily going to be true for the electric and gas industry with the choice programs. So PUCO is probably your best resource. And the Consumers Council, they're the residential utility consumer advocate. So if you have a problem that you see out there in the community, Consumers Council can be a good friend as well, a good ally in that effort.
with reference to telephone calls, I know that there are some apps that you can get, and I have signed up with AT&T, who happens to be my provider, and so I get spam alerts. So it'll tell me on my phone, suspected spam. So that's always something that, you know, is a defense. It's not an answer, especially when people are going door to door. But there are some, if you look across the spectrum, there are some different programs, apps for your phone or even your computer that you can put in place to help protect a little bit more. And one of those is spam alert.
And these opt-out programs on the screen, these are also in your book, but the opt-out pre-screen is to opt out of some of those pre-approved credit card offers. And dmachoice.org is to opt out of those catalogs that you suddenly get in your mailbox even though you never wanted them. So they're not, again, not 100% effective. I can't guarantee you're not going to get any pre-approved credit card offers, but you're definitely going to limit the scope of what they're able to send you by going to those two websites.
And it's always good to remember, when you have something that someone else wants, people are willing to invest a lot of time and energy in trying to get what they want. So I think there was a question here.
Yeah, you answered part of it. What can you do about robocalls? So I made note on AT&T, and the one thing I read in the paper was people will call, and I try to call back the number, and it'll be a scam. So I block the number. So if they're selling my phone number, it gives them a dead number. And so that's what I just want to know about other things you can do to block robocalls.
Yeah, there are some services out there both with the provider, and they're getting more and more creative about having some good proactive services. Then there's also some third parties, especially for your cell phone. There are third-party apps that you can download that'll help filter out the scam calls or at least the known robocalls. And right now we're in a situation where every day the Federal Trade Commission issues a report that the phone companies have access to with everybody's robocall numbers that have been reported that day. So talk to Washington, call the Federal Trade Commission to report folks that are calling you with a robocall. Most of those are going to be illegal anyway. And again, if it's a sales call and you have a do not call number registered, they shouldn't be doing that either. So go to donotcall.gov, and that's where enforcement action can begin against telemarketers that aren't doing their job.
Well, and I think also setting up some rules for yourself. For example, if I get a call and there's no message, then I'm thinking maybe you really don't want to talk to me. So I don't answer the phone if it's not a number that I don't know. And if somebody calls me, you know, there's that tendency, we all do that, where we get a missed call and we hit that call back because we think it's something important. Mm-hmm. If people don't leave you a message, then I would be fairly comfortable in saying that when you call that number back, you might be listening to Chinese. Because sometimes that's what I get on my voicemails. It seems to be. It's oftentimes a foreign entity talking to me.
Yeah, and just remember how cheap it is to call around the world these days. Like never before, scammers have access to the phone system. They have access to make international calls for almost nothing per call.
So we are exactly at 12:30. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to ask? I will again let you know that this will be up on the MWR webpage so you can review it again. And also, Ryan has brought me all of the links to the information that's in the back, and we'll be posting that as well as the slides. So it's very important information, and if there's somebody that couldn't come and attend in person, please let them know that they can at least go back and view it and pick up the important information. So thank you very much. Round of applause.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule for me.